Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers. This is, of course, the podcast where we talk about what's happening on television, what to watch, what not to watch, and sometimes movies, sometimes just general things, news, things to talk about. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me, of course, my co-host, Grace Leeder. How are you doing, Grace?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. I feel like a slow week, but industry is back. We covered it here on We Know Scripted TV. Josh, Emily, and I chatted about the premiere episode, so you can catch that recap. It was really good. It was really fun. And I've been watching some other stuff. I've been watching lots of TV.
Yeah, well, I have not. Let me tell you. Basically, Big Brother obviously takes a lot of my time.
Yeah.
But I got sucked into the Olympics. I got sucked in, and it has taken. I don't think I've watched a single other show. It's any free time has gone to the Olympics, and the climbing. Oof, so
It
good.
was good.
It was great.
The breakdancing was the highlight, I think.
I did watch
Ray Gun.
I watched Ray Gun last night. I watched her performances, and
You know what? I have to give a big thank you to Ray Gun, Terrence. You know why? I think
What?
Ray Gun officially means that like the Olympics is not going to do breaking as it's called, and Canada won a gold medal in the men's breakdancing. So we'll just hold on. We'll be like the only ever
Forever on top.
breaking ship. Yeah. So thanks, Ray Gun. I think they were like, wow, this was kind of embarrassing. I think most of the Olympics have been so fun, and there's obviously there was the boxing there's controversy, the opening ceremonies, but like I feel like it's mostly pretty positive. The day that the breaking stuff happened, it's like I feel really bad for Reagan, I think.
Yeah. Listen, I guess for those off the top, I guess we'll just
Really. I didn't expect this to be the headline,
because I didn't know what Reagan was until basically I looked it up last night. So if you similar to me are like, why is everyone talking about Reagan? We had Bowie Jane on the Big Brother podcast.
That's right.
People were like, ask her about Reagan, and I was like, what are they talking about? Reagan was an Australian break dancer, breaker, B girl.
Breaking athlete.
Who now I watched the videos. They explained that she's very into like improvisational breaking.
Yeah.
And so some of that improv turned into like some silly stuff, kind of like if you're watching the video, kind of like some of this.
Yeah, and like there's like a lot of like synchro like bending her whole body in half. That's my favorite thing. Yeah.
It's honestly it's great. And
that person's Olympic athlete. Hell yeah, Reagan. This is not making fun of Reagan. This is great.
Absolutely.
Reagan, there was a tweet that I saw that was like explaining that like if you actually went and saw the qualifiers that Reagan was involved in, like everybody was sort of competing in that qualifier, dance very similarly to Reagan, and so like anybody who would have made it from that's like their style, and then like it's just not a very common style since she showed up, and I feel like was like a little out of place. But I love that. It's so fun.
To bring it back to scripted television, one of my favorite scenes from Peep Show, which is a show I would highly recommend anybody watch, was the scene where one of the main characters is at like a thing and is supposed to like release his emotions, and he just starts like freaking out and whipping his arms around. Played by David Mitchell. She reminds me of that. It's so funny. And highly worth checking out if you're able to watch any of the clips of Ray Gun. But that's what I've been up to. That was my little check-in. But as you mentioned, industry.
Yep.
Season 3. I have not had a chance to watch any more of Industry. I've still not finished the first season. But you are covering it with Josh and Emily. We have been able to see that there's an article released by the RHAP that season 3 debuted up 60% from the season 2 premiere, which on one hand, those are very good numbers. House of the Dragon was down like 22%, and The Boys was up like 22% in their most recent season, but up 60% is very good. but there are some pretty significant reasons for why they should expect a pretty big boost, considering they've never been on Sunday nights. They've never
Yep.
had this much advertising presence. They have Kit Harington following House of the Dragons Sunday nights. There's a lot going for. They were clearly pushing very hard, and they're clearly very happy with, or at least they're pushing the 60% number. I guess the question is, was that enough? Did they? Is this a successful? Because I think they were expecting a bump. Was this a big enough bump? Was this what they were hoping for?
I yeah, it's very interesting because the article is like it's not exactly spin, but it's a little spin. Like it says like industry season 3 debuts to 300,000 viewers, up 60% from season 2 premiere. So they do like put the spin at the end of much like Raygun. Talking about the spin. They put the spin at the end of the article. Like if you just say like industry season 3 debuts to 300,000 viewers, that maybe seems good or bad. That's not like amazing by HBO standards, but I don't know that the show was expected to be like, the elite of the elite. I think that this was a plan by them to put it on right after House of the Dragon to get sort of the like hopefully people stick around and keep watching on Sunday night. There was a run of HBO I keep talking about that was like I think end of 2022 into 2023 that was like The Last of Us and White Lotus and Succession and then you for like it was like this was sort of their they had such a good run. This is a little bit not like that in that like Industry is a show that I think people who watch it quite like it. And then I think people who are coming on board are I'm seeing like half being like it's good, but not like this is amazing. I thought the premiere was really good. But this is also a show that kind of I think intentionally wants you to feel like it's trying to mimic the world of stock trading in the sense that it's very frantic and moves very fast. And the show kind of wants you to feel that in the way that it's not going to stop down. Like nobody's going to be like, and this thing we're doing right now, like there's no monologue to the screen of like, and the thing we're doing right now is because we're doing this. Like they're just kind of want you to be in it and feel it, which I think for some people has been disorienting. So it'd be interesting to see. Obviously, the viewership is up, but to 300,000, which is less than half of what like Barry season four's premiere got, which that is a show that was a Sunday night show, I think in its entire run. We maybe have to fact check that. Had probably bigger name recognition than any of the other seasons. From right from the get go, it has both Bill Hader and also Henry Winkler. So I, I don't know. So 300,000, it's good that it's up. Um, I don't know if they were expecting a lot more from this, but it does seem good. And I think so far, I feel like this is a show like it had 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's a show that I think the people who are watching it are liking it. Whether enough people are watching it for it to get much runway after this, Taran, we'll see.
It seems to me like there has been a very big and deliberate push. I've been seeing more articles about it. I'd literally never heard of the show until Josh brought it to my attention, and so for that reason, maybe it's that, whatever effect where, like, now I'm seeing it, but, like,
Yeah,
I'm definitely seeing a lot of stuff about it, particularly, like, I'm seeing stuff like, "Hey, season 3, the critics love it. It's the best season so far." Maybe a little bit of a weak start, but it really kicks in season 2, and season 3 is supposed to be even better. Um, like, seeing a lot of stuff like that. It's worth noting this article is from, the RHAP about the ratings. They, mention multiple times that this is an exclusive to the RHAP, and I'm not gonna pretend to know how this kind of thing works, but, it's not a surprise to me that the article has a very positive spin given that it was an exclusive for them. It definitely feels to me like this again has been a very deliberate push to try to get industry to work. And I think that I would assume that the reason why is that Succession was not a runaway hit right away either.
it was
Succession
not.
was something that picked up in later seasons. Um, I would say one of the main differences for Succession is that while Succession did have a little bit of a slow start in the first couple of episodes, I think that by the like through the first season, you were pretty much hooked in on Succession. Whereas what I'm hearing from industry and what I'm experiencing myself is that industry in general has a bit of a slower first season and then picks up in the second season.
Yeah.
At least is what I've heard. At least it feels different. Maybe some people prefer the first season, but in terms of like grabbing people in that way, it feels like it takes maybe a little bit longer. And so there are people like me who are it's like, "I'd love to check this out, but I've got 2 seasons to get through first." And I don't feel pressed to watch it either. So,
Yeah, I felt like we were doing a bit of work over the last weeks to be like, "Hey, we're gonna talk about industry, so you should probably watch industry." And I do think we got like some people on board, but it does have a little bit of a commitment in the same way, or it does have a commitment. So it's like a little bit of like, am I gonna like spend it? And I would agree. I think season one of Succession has this moment exactly halfway through that to me actually feels like if you're a reality TV show fan, it felt very like there was a reality show tribal council element to it. This is the like boardroom scene where Kendall is trying to make a move essentially in season one.
mhm.
um and that for me is the moment that I was like, all right, I'm pretty in on the show.
Yeah.
I think season one of Industry has a moment that for me is enough, but it's nowhere near that moment of the show. I think that like just Jesse Armstrong is just leaps above. I think the writing of anything on Industry so far, but I think that the show is very strong. The themes it's trying to this is Industry. The themes it's trying to get through are good. One thing about 600,000, that's obviously I believe if I'm just getting that right, that is the that's across HBO and Max. Um, but season two went on to average 1.4 million viewers per episode while accounting for viewing across linear, max, and on-demand viewing. So the 600,000 number or 300,000 number should bump up as more people start to watch.
Mhm.
If you look at Succession numbers, basically Succession actually had higher average viewership in season one than it did two and three, and then completely bumped up for its final season in season four. So it had 600,000 basically in season one, a little under 600,000 for season two, five and a half, 550,000, and then 700,000 for season three. So in terms of like, but again, that's the viewership on the night. So it's like
Yeah.
double what Industry was doing, and then explodes in terms of like as people are catching on. So I think Industry will always be like, I feel like maybe it's a disservice to keep talking about it like it's Succession because it's a little bit like I don't think it's ever going to be it's not going to be as big as Succession. It's not going to be just frankly as good as Succession. I think it's a very good show, and I put
Yeah.
Succession in like the pantheon of some of maybe even the best show of the last 5-10 years. So
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Fair. Well, um, speaking of, there was a discussion we wanted to kind of like touch back on the Olympics. I did bring it up that is where my attention has gone to over the last week or so. Um, and we mentioned this last week, but like the ratings for the Olympics really were very good this year. And we've been trying to like put the finger on exactly like why. I think in terms of the viewing experience, we talked about like this being this like live feed almost element of it, I think was really helpful. And the choose your own adventure style of Big Brother, where you can watch live feeds, or you can watch the show, or you can just follow through social media. That's what it felt like to watch the Olympics for me. And I can't compare it to anything else because I've never been a big Olympics watcher or viewer. But basically, like when I was sick and I was just, like, laying on the couch all day. I just had the Olympics on all day, and I could just do that. When I was busier, I couldn't catch things, during the day, and I could throw on the live replay and watch hours of that if I wanted to, or I could watch the highlights and just the main parts. It was very much choose your own adventure, very much, the, to fit whatever you were capable of watching essentially. And I think that that's such a good formula that very few like pieces of content are able to accomplish. And so that was interesting for me.
yeah. I think that there's a few things I think that this Olympics had going for it. And I think what's actually really interesting is the next Summer Olympics, I believe, is in LA, right?
LA.
So I feel like there's a lot of momentum to be cashed on, although it's 4 years from now. But in terms of what this Olympics had going for it over Tokyo is Tokyo was a little bit shifted and scheduled because of COVID, which I don't think really impacts that. Like, do I really care that the Olympics is in 2021 instead of 2020? Probably not. I don't think it really matters. Um, But the other thing is with the time zone, there was sort of this thing of like, I think that you could, people who are like me who work mostly remote did have it on all day in the background while they were working and having it, watching. And then you could also, like, you could then watch it in the evening. You could watch it at night and watch sort of the curated programming that, like, if you weren't really actually able to catch Simone Biles' floor routine, you could then watch the replay later at night. And these numbers, in terms of, I believe it being up 82% over the Tokyo Olympics, does take into account the fact that, like, that's all of their streaming platforms. So that's like linear TV, that's Peacock, all of that stuff. So I think that, like, yeah, the like move to stream it, I think certainly, like, they were going to see a bump no matter what. This does feel like a huge success story for Peacock. For me, what I think is like interesting to think about is like, can they leverage this into what they have next and not just the next Olympics? I almost feel like every once in a while something shows up on Peacock that I like. Obviously Poker Face was on there. Sometimes there's just, I'm like, yeah, okay, uh what's with the Continental? It's the John Wick show. I was like, oh, it's, okay, I guess we're doing that. Bel Air premieres, season 3 premieres. I think this Thursday or Friday. I think Thursday. So that's something that they have. I think Those About to Die is also airing on Peacock in the United States. Is that how you've been watching Those About to Die, Taryn? Is that where you watched it? Or you've been watching it somewhere else?
Uh,
No, that's fine. It is a Peacock show. I watch on Amazon Prime, but I don't know if that's I don't know if that's like
yeah,
a Canadian thing.
pretty sure it's Peacock. I'm pretty sure that's where I'm watching it.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
Peacock in the United States, and internationally it's on Amazon Prime Video. So yeah, so I mean, like, that's a big swing to throw. That's a big show to throw in the, it's like Anthony Hopkins on the front of the thing. I don't think that anything has really gotten a lot of traction. But it'll be interesting to see if they can sort of capitalize on this. But I don't think they have enough in the pipeline, basically.
I mean, I'm just honestly like, yeah, obviously when it comes to ratings for shows, I mean, we're talking about industry being like, hey, we got 300,000 viewers for that night at least. And most of the viewers for the show in general are gonna come later when people watch it, via, on demand, streaming, whatever. Um, and I think it just speaks more to how broadcast TV is just still fading away. When I saw a discussion about the ratings for industry, there was like a comment that was like, "It's wild that like you can watch somebody like essentially stream on Twitch, and they have the same amount or more viewers live than this show that costs millions of dollars to produce, right?" Like,
Yeah, I mean, Netflix does not see their competition as the other streamers. They see it as you like YouTube is their like competition. Like if you're
mhm.
going and spending time on a streamer, like for me, if I turn on my smart TV, like YouTube is right beside my Netflix. But like that's what I like. I'm deciding between those things. Twitch, they're all in the same sort of bucket to me in my TV and sort of modern television. So like, yeah, Netflix, I don't think is that worried about these other networks. They're like, I don't know that Peacock has like a strong. I feel like NBC used to have like a strong identity of like they're really good at comedy. Like I feel like we were just talking before we started about like we like Scrubs. Scrubs is an NBC show. The Office, Parks and Recreation, like all of these shows. I feel like, and then it I think like a lot of the like sort of like more traditional. I think it's the owner of all of the Chicago franchise, which is a thing. So like it also has Yellowstone, the most watched show of 2023, I believe. So like it does have content. I don't know that it has any brand identity, Peacock, at all in terms of like what you can expect to go when you if you subscribe to Peacock. I don't know if that it
I
doesn't have
just I
anything.
yeah, I mean, I feel like that I really and this is probably coming from obviously a biased source here, but, like, I really feel like the streaming service that can nail live content that goes beyond just sports, because obviously sports remains like a bastion of making massive money and tons of ratings, and, the Olympics is an extension of that. But, like, I feel like live content is something that is still mostly untapped by big, production, houses and networks. The Big Brother is one of the few shows that captures that kind of, audience and attention. And there's a reason they keep doing it despite the fact that it brings them a lot of trouble. And it's that, like, there really is a lot of, viewership that can come from that, and I feel like there is something special to stuff that feels like it's happening live. And, obviously that's going to be tough in a scripted environment, but it makes me wonder, like, who is going to be investing more in this kind of content if they are trying to compete with places like YouTube or Twitch? Like, I don't know.
I mean, Netflix is to a degree. They're bringing in pro wrestling. They did the roast. They did a tennis game. They did a golf thing. They were going to do Mike Tyson's boxing. I think Jake Paul, is that right? Like they certainly are there, but I think they have to because they're there. I do think it is a thing that can sort of elevate one of these other not Netflix streamers to be able to do that kind of stuff. Sports, you would think would be the venue to like get into that, but are you familiar with Venue Sports, the new streaming platform that's coming, Taran? Is this something that's on your yeah, yeah. It's basically ESPN, Fox, and Warner Brothers coming together to be like, oh, we will sell you a bundle of sports networks together under a platform called Venue. Would you like to let's play a little game? Would you like to guess what they are going to charge per month for Venue Sports? It will include games from the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, WNBA, NASCAR, college sports, golf, tennis, and soccer, as well as studio shows, pre and post game programming, and access to ESPN's 30 for 30 library, ESPN films, and documentaries from Fox Sports Films.
I think they're gonna go expensive. I think like 50 to $100 a
Yeah,
month.
42.99 a month. Who, if you, I think a lot of people who do watch sports are still sort of like caught up in the old school, like, I do have cable, and it's like partially for live TV, which I probably don't even need anymore, but it's also for sports.
Mhm.
And if I'm already paying that, then I don't think it's going to be worth it for me to then like drop that to then have a 42.99 month plan of these sports services. So
I think
I
I
don't
think
know.
that's the idea, no? That, like, if you're paying upwards of $100 I don't know how much cable television costs nowadays, but I know that it could get
It
real
could, it
expensive.
could, yeah.
If
Mhm.
you're paying for all of these packages and all of this stuff and you only use it for sports, dropping that down to 40, $50 a month might be a bit of a bargain at that point, and it's a better experience maybe? Like, I don't know.
The only thing I worry about is that I actually won't get everything that I would actually want to watch. So like a lot of stuff ends up being like all the rights of sports is so complicated that probably we need like an expert to come in and explain it to us about like, but I just can't see this being. I think there's this price. I mean, it's interesting. You said higher than the number, but I think if you're a sports fan, I don't know that 42.99 from. I guess if you're dropping something else, if you're dropping your cable bill, but
I think that's why I went high is because I know how valuable sports is, and I know that it's one of the main reasons why, like, cable television, I think in general, is still holding on. Is that people that's one of the only things that people need a live broadcast service for. And so if they're going to drop it entirely for a streaming service, then they're gonna wanna, like, milk it for as much as it's worth, and people are willing to pay for sports. So
yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if Peacock can do anything with the fact that they just had a massive success story in the Olympics. I don't know that any of their scripted stuff is gonna, like, turn the dial on that. I think, they have interesting stuff that every once in a while I wanna check into, but I don't know that they have a strong enough brand identity, that I'm like, "Gotta have I mean, I can't get Peacock in Canada, like, I need to watch all these things through something else, but Peacock's a strange little thing, but that would be on my to watch list is like other than Paramount, probably the most likely thing that gets most likely streaming service. I bet actually doesn't exist in a year
yeah.
or two. Yeah,
Well, speaking of a show that I definitely knew was on Peacock.
you watch it. You don't even know where it's on. That's so funny.
Listen,
That's so
you
funny.
just you just click on things.
To be fair, yeah, my smart TV will be like, "You want to watch this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, great." And it just takes you the app, and the episode starts. Like, I don't need to actually know what streaming service it's on.
Uh, those about to die. I have not been able to watch more of it yet. I still intend to, but obviously, like I said, I was completely caught up with the Olympics. Um, those about to die, heavily advertised. Anthony Hopkins, right up there in the marketing. And it's one of these Rome shows. I like Rome shows.
Yeah,
I like Anthony Hopkins. I was like, I'm in. Let's see. My experience with it from, like, the first scene, I was like, "Oh, this is bad." I was like, "Oh, this is oof, that was very cheesy." That was because let me tell you,
Mhm.
I saw Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
I saw cool looking poster.
Yeah.
I expected prestige.
I believe
I thought we
Iwan
were doing something
Rheon is
s
here. He's from
I
Game
thought
of
we were
Thrones,
doing
yeah.
something serious.
Yeah.
Throughout first half, first 3 quarters of the first episode, I was like, "Ugh, this is just not good." I have to go and be like, "Man, not a great show, don't recommend."
Mhm.
But then I realized, "Wait, I'm not watching, like, even Rome itself, the show. I'm watching Spartacus.
Mhm.
This is supposed to be cheesy. This is supposed to be over the top. The I loved Spartacus. And as soon as that clicked for me, I was like, "Okay, now I'm having a good time. This is some good fun right here." And that is Those About to Die. I think that it is good fun. If you enjoyed Spartacus, basically what I would say is that, like, it's one of those shows. I think Spartacus was on Stars. It was full of nudity all the time
Yeah.
and gratuitous violence and way over the top drama plots of, like, rebellion and murder and intrigue. And it's just good fun. That's what Those About to Die for me is. I think it's good fun. It's not quite Spartacus levels of good fun, but it's definitely enjoyable. I have a good time with it.
Yeah, I've watched 4 episodes. I've basically at the end of each one been like, "Okay, fun," and they I think do a good job of by the end of the episode making me want to watch more. They do have pretty good run times on these things. I feel like basically an hour each episode. I do feel like the show is interesting in that it definitely feels like expensive TV in the sense that not like modern expensive TV. Like I remember watching Rings of Power episode 1 for the first time, and Josh Wheeler was like, "That felt like it would cost $1 billion." Like, yeah, it does. This doesn't feel. This feels like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like they do a lot of work of like overhead shots of Rome, and it's set in a time when like the Colosseum is like almost done being built. Essentially, is like actually like a little bit of a thing in the show. That's the time period we're in, and like it looks good and bad. I don't know if that meant like I'm like I totally know that this is a, I mean it has to be CGI because they can't redo like they don't have yeah. But I don't know and I you know I think Ewan Rihanna who's he was in Game of Thrones. I think he's very good
Very
as
good.
kind of basically our lead. He plays Tenax. I like how I think the show is doing a good job so far of balancing both how big it feels and also like narrowing in on the story. There's like specifically a story involving one of the women on the show who is basically like she's lost all of her children through various means, and she's like trying to get them back. And I'm basically super invested in the show. One thing that's interesting, we haven't really talked about this, Sharon, that I keep meaning to bring it up in several different contexts. Is I use the app TV Time, which basically is to track what television I'm watching. And after every episode, you click, okay, I watched this episode. And then it comes up and it's like, how did you watch it? Did you watch it like, did you watch it on Peacock or did you watch it on Amazon Prime? And you click it and it's like, what do you rate it out of 5? And you can do that. And then it's like, who's your favorite character? And last year, at the end of the year, I got this like, this was your favorite character. And it was from a show I binge watched. I was like, that doesn't actually track. So I'm actively trying to keep track of who my favorite characters are in each episode.
Mhm.
There's a character in the show that I want to get her name. Is it Kala? I want to get this. I want to get this right. Who every episode I've watched so far, I go and pick who my favorite character is, and then the show is the app is like, actually, this is the best character. Yeah, Kala. She's like 99% the audience's favorite character. So I feel like
Oh,
it's really
interesting.
working for me. Actually, people do it for Big Brother too, Taran. I want to give you the data on who people rate every episode as
Ooh,
their favorite character from Big Brother. I want to send this to you. Yeah.
get them.
Um, yeah, I know. Because I feel like it's a very casual audience. Of like, I mean, you're deep enough that you're tracking your TV and going into the into the deeper stats, but
Mhm.
it is interesting. But so far, all the characters are working for me. I think it's interesting. It is a little bit campy and over the top, but I think it's pretty good. I think it's a little bit of a shame that they dropped this all. at once on one day. So this show actually came out almost a month ago by the time you're listening to this. And I feel like there's been no peep on it. And I feel like it will only continue to for people not to talk about it other than
Mhm.
us. And then people will like find it and be like, did anybody watch this show? And you and I would be like, we did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just in this weird space. I think the marketing doesn't really do it justice, and, like, what I will say is this is not really a spoiler. You notice this immediately in the first episode that, like, Anthony Hopkins is barely there. Like,
He's
they use him, like, once an episode, maybe. Like, he is very much there just to give the show a little bit of prestige feel, and I think that's actually, like, a mistake. Like, I think that, like, the poster for it, the way that the show I thought it was, and then was immediately greeted with was such a this, like, weird juxtaposition that it made me feel like I wouldn't continue with the show, and I think that has not worked for it, and it exists in this weird space where it's like, it's not quite Spartacus, but it's also not quite like Black Sails, like, because Black Sails is another show in this vein, right? That's like
yeah.
it's very over the top, with lots of like gratuitous violence and nudity and stuff like that. But Black Sails really tried to take itself seriously while it was doing that. Spartacus took itself seriously, but in a very tongue-in-cheek way. And Those About to Die is, I think, like kind of riding the middle of that. So it occupies this weird space to begin with, and then it's being advertised in a way that makes me feel like it's like prestige. I didn't watch any trailers for it, but just the images and the Anthony Hopkins of it all. So I think it's very mixed messaging, and I think that's part of why it's hard to really nail down discussion about it and like have people see it for what it is and talk about it. But
Yeah.
I think it's worth. I think it's if you like any of those shows that I mentioned, Rome, Spartacus, Black Sails, it's in that vein, and I
Yeah.
think you'll have fun with it. It's not quite like on that level for me yet for those things, but it's good fun.
Yeah, the tomato score is like 62% on the audience, which I actually think is like probably reflective of what it's not the most amazing show I've ever watched, but I am enjoying each episode.
Yeah.
I think the critic score is like 49, but if you actually take just the top critics, it's more like 67. I think that's probably just about right. I think that's like kind of what I would, I can see people being like, I don't want to watch any of this, but I think that if you, I think it's a great, point. If you watch these other shows, throw on those about to die, and you'll be quite entertained. I think.
Mhm. Okay. Where should we go next, Grace?
Can I tell you about a very exciting thing? I actually didn't put it on the agenda, Taran.
Okay.
I watched something 2 days ago. I went and took my nieces to a little thing called Shrek the Musical.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was playing limited time only. I actually thought pretty good. If you like Shrek, there were a lot of adults, and actually, I would say like I actually like felt at times that we actually shouldn't have taken my nieces because like I feel like the way the musical was catering was actually to people who watch the movie because it's like a 20-year-old movie. I know Shrek 5 is coming out this summer, or not this summer, coming out soon. Um, uh, that it was absolutely catering to people who watched Shrek when they were younger and who are now adults and who are kind of like, I love Shrek. I loved watching Shrek. And so like there's many jokes in it that are like I had to turn to my mom and be like, did the dragon actually say the F word? And she was like, I don't think so. It just made it sound like literally that's what yeah. So but it was quite enjoyable. I think my nieces did enjoy it. But it was almost a 2 hour long Shrek musical, Taryn. So yeah, that's probably
Listen,
you were watching the Olympics and Big Brother, and I was at Shrek the Musical.
I went and saw operas in college as
You did?
part of my classes, and
Wow.
those were long, I can tell you.
I've never been to an
Um,
opera. I feel like
no, I mean, not bad, not a bad experience.
yeah, I feel like I should try it out at some point. I've also never been to
It's
the ballet, and I want to go to the ballet too.
I've never gone to a ballet,
Yeah. Well,
but,
yeah. So,
I did go and see Deadpool this weekend.
oh, you did.
I did,
What'd you
and I thought it
think?
was very fun. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Yeah. That's it's. Does it say anything like meaningful about the future of Marvel? No. Was it
No,
fun?
but, like, but honestly, like, if anything, I felt like the plot of Deadpool was a meta plot about Marvel more so than it was a plot of its own story, if that
I
makes
would
sense.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And I would say about Marvel and Sony, or sorry, not Sony, Fox.
Fox. Yeah, it was a love letter to Fox more than the future of Marvel.
It was very much commenting on the things that we are talking about in this moment, which I thought was fun and interesting, and of course lots of funny jokes and cameos and such. But yeah, I thought it was a good time. I would not hesitate to recommend it to people who would enjoy an R-rated superhero movie.
Yeah. Okay, I've been continuing my Emmys watch through to watch everything that got nominated for an Emmy. And I feel like I did end up watching, I think, which has been like continually everyone's like, this is the most underrated show ever. And it's Reservation Dogs. Boy, I thought the show was absolutely incredible, phenomenal. There's a moment in season two where initially I was chatting with Antonio Mazzaro about this. I was like, I really didn't like these like episodes that are more about the adults. I'm a big coming of age fan of that genre. And when they were like sort of pulling out, I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling it. And by the end of the show, I'm like, an idiot and didn't understand what they were doing. And this is all about the way that like generational trauma is inflicted and the way that different generations handle things that are happening to them and how important community is to these communities, the relationships between one generation to the next. And I just thought Reservation Dogs is maybe one of the best things I've ever watched on television. It's extremely funny. The especially the four actors who play sort of our main characters are so good in the show that they can hit sort of the emotional beats and then also play into the comedy of the show in a way that like is my favorite balance. Like I want every Scrubs is maybe the best example to me of this of a show that like is making you laugh most of the time and then just punches you in the gut when you were least expecting it. And I felt like Reservation Dogs did that extremely well. So I finished that in like the span of 3 days. I also finished Curb Your Enthusiasm. It was fine. That's exactly what you thought. And I have picked back up The Sympathizer, Taran, which I'm actually loving. I am kind of in the
Yeah,
middle,
there you go.
so we'll see how it ends. But I thought these middle episodes are really strong. And I just think like are pretty. I think it's really undeniable great television so far. So again, in the middle, so we'll see if it lands the plane as it was. But I'm really wrapped up in this in The Sympathizer again. So I'm excited that I'm digging that
It's very fun.
digging that. So yeah, that's sort of where I am in my Emmy watch through. Yeah.
I want to ask you about Reservation Dogs
Yes,
because
please.
I was very excited to watch Reservation Dogs,
Yes.
but it came at a very busy time.
Yes.
So I ended up watching 2 episodes of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it premiered in the summer, in 2021.
I know. I know. I know.
3 years ago I did this.
And
Oh
it's
my
over.
god.
And it's over too. Like it's had its run. Season three is it? Yep.
So I watched 2 episodes of it in the summer of 2021,
Yeah.
but I did not have enough, like, attention and time to dedicate to, like, really paying it much attention. The 2 episodes didn't grab me, and I just still have never gone back. I've never felt like a desire to go back. Did you feel like you were immediately grabbed? Is it my fault? Was I not paying close enough attention? I feel like it's a show I should really like.
They're I think immediately the performances for me of like mostly these are characters. Laura Bear, Willie Jack is just tremendous. And she's been nominated for a bunch of stuff for her performance here. Those I think I was like, oh, these are great. And then there's also William Knifeman. This idea the show tells you in episode one, but basically the main character, one of the main characters, Bear, has this relationship with like a spirit who visits him named William Knifeman. And that to me worked pretty immediately. I think the show does take a little bit it sort of starts again not us but the show does deal with themes of death by suicide. This is an important piece of there's like sort of a fifth member of this group that we never meet because he's died before the show starts, and that's such a through line of all the seasons of the show but specifically one and two. And I feel like the show feels like it has to sort of like I think premieres are tough in terms of like and especially a comedy as well. So I don't know that it hooked me immediately. Like I did binge this very fast. So it's also like hard for me to parse out like the exact moment, but I do feel like by the time I'm like 4 or 5 episodes in, I'm like immediately watching the next one and just watching it continuously. And I thought the ending of season one is actually pretty tremendous. Like they do actually do a really good job of like wrapping up stories within a season. I would 100% advocate for people to go and watch this, or in your case, like pick it back up and just sort of stick with it because I think it does have that like emotional resonance. It's very funny. It's a community that I'm not like, like is not my experience. So the
Mhm.
experience of the show, I think, is something important for us to like be watching and putting in our, like making sure we're making time for these stories. And I'm so happy that that's kind of the story of the show, that it wasn't really like people were watching it because it's good, but it was almost like people weren't watching. The people who were watching it were like, "This is excellent." And finishing its third season, it gets a nomination for best comedy at the Emmys. So yeah,
That was my favorite part of the show, even though it hadn't grabbed me, was that it was such a different perspective. And
right.
and I was very interested in that perspective. And I think in many ways, actually, in the first 2 episodes, I felt like I wanted more of that and less of like the conventional plots we were getting. um, but like I think that I will definitely go back and
It
see more of it because I do think I will like it. And I've always felt that way. I just like there's never been an urgency.
It's funny. It is a show that I think does balance like classic sitcom things. There's an episode where I think that Alora is trying to get her driver's license. That's like what the entire episode is about. But it balances all of this, and I think that the way at the end of the show, the whole community, and like in a way that a lot of shows do really well, like by the end of The Office, like you fall in love with like every single person who works on The Office, like, but in a way that's about community, and the way these people are affected by each other is just so strong. It also has some tremendous guest appearances along the way. Lily Gladstone plays a pretty important character over the course of the show, but it also has like Megan Mullally and Bill Burr and Mark Maron, like all of these people just like show up to be part of the show, often just for like one episode, in a way that I feel like is really fun. So, yeah,
Hmm. Okay, well, I thought we talked a little bit about Borderlands, I think, last week. Um,
yeah,
and I mentioned that I was hearing not great things.
yeah.
Uh, turns out,
I went and watched it. I was the only one in the theater, Taran. It was this movie is not good. Get everyone in the movie should get their money. But I don't think they're gonna make any more. It just feels pretty lifeless in a way. Again, it's an interesting thing because I don't know if I exactly am tuned into like in the same way that I feel like people who love Fallout love Fallout. I don't know if people who love Borderlands were like itching for this to sort of like be amazing and good so that they could get a bunch of Borderlands content on their television and movie screens. But I don't know. I was kind of hoping that I would have low expectations to go in and I'd be blown away by them, but I really, really wasn't. I thought this was like sort of whatever, you know? It's a
mhm.
whatever movie. It's an Eli Roth movie. It's fine. Kate Blanchett is like fine, just doing her thing. She's a tremendous actress. Yeah, I don't know. I would not rush out to see this. I would wait for it to be on a streaming service in like a week, probably. you can watch 10 minutes and see if you like it.
So I just went to the IMDb to just like get what the rating was. It's a 4.3 right now.
Yeah.
Um, and I I don't know how I didn't know this before, and I'm a little confused about the validity of it. It's an Eli Roth movie,
Yeah.
which, he has certainly, had some ups and downs. Um, I mean, most recently, I thought Thanksgiving was pretty great,
Yeah.
as a fun horror. But then also listed as the co-writer, Joe Abercrombie on
Yeah.
IMDb.
Mhm.
Um, Now I know that Craig Mazin was originally attached to this, or at least it was maybe rumor. Now I'm very confused about all of this. That because I'm seeing an article saying Craig Mazin says he's not a credited writer, and I know that I'd heard that he had like backed out of this at some point. So I'm trying to get a sense of what this is. But that at one point, Joe Crombie was listed as a writer on this movie. Um, but on IMDb, it's Joe Abercrombie, who is one of my favorite fantasy authors. And uh, I don't know how I wouldn't have heard that he was a writer on this movie. Also, I would assume, book author to movie writer, maybe not the best and easiest transition, but like, um, it would be very
So,
interesting to know.
is it for sure the same Joe Abercrombie though?
That's the thing is that I don't
I
think it is.
I don't
I
think
think
it
it's a
is.
mislabeling.
I think well, Joe Abercrombie is also credited on IMDb with having written for Death, Love, and Robots. Is that what
I
I
mean,
think
that's
that's
possible.
and
Uh,
so it's just I think a different Joe Abercrombie
but it's
or
also Best Served Cold, which is an actual project that he's working on. It's one of his books, that Best Served Cold. Um,
that's also on his IMDb. Oh
that's on
man.
his IMDb, but, like, I don't know if this is correct.
Well, the
Wha
other the other thing is that people thought that Craig Mazin was going to be credited with a pseudonym on
Right,
Borderlands
that
2.
was the thing, the assumption was Joe
Joe
Crombie was a
Crombie.
pseudonym of Craig Mazin and maybe a reference to Joe Abercrombie or something along those lines, but then I'm seeing this article in Variety saying that he denies that that is a pseudonym that he used.
Yeah, but
Um,
isn't the point of having a pseudonym that you don't?
that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah.
He says, "If the name is indeed a pseudonym, all I can say is it's not mine." Um,
Mm,
I will
I
look
don't
into
know.
this more and maybe give you an update. Not that anybody cares
No,
nearly as
I
much as I
care.
do,
Now I'm invested. Yeah.
but this is very interesting to me. I would hate it if Joe Abercrombie was involved in this because I know he is working on projects for his books,
Right.
and, being attached to something like this would definitely, not be great for that. Um, but,
Yeah.
we'll have to see. Either way, Borderlands, I mean, I played the games. I don't know why they thought this would make a good movie. Uh, I mean, I guess in the same way that, like, you say that Fallout, right? Fallout fits the vibes of Fallout.
Mhm.
It doesn't follow the story of Fallout as much as it does just, like, create a story in that universe. Borderlands for me doesn't have the same bones as Fallout for story creation. It has a vibe, and, maybe they fit the vibe, maybe they didn't, but, like, something about this movie fell very flat, and, I'm honestly more curious to see it to find out what went flat than I would have been otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, the aesthetic of the movie is good. That's, like, not the thing I
It
actually
looks
would feel.
exactly like I thought it would, so I don't
Yeah,
think the
so
visual is the problem.
yeah, it's not, and I think like there's ways in which that works. Like Kate Blanchett's character's like hair is like completely just like still the entire movie, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like the aesthetic of the movie is great. It just the story is whatever, and you know.
I mean, it would suck if the writing was the weak point and it was Joe Abercrombie.
Yeah, but
But hey, what are you gonna
we'll
do?
credit it
Maybe he's
mostly
just,
maybe with Eli Roth. Yeah.
yeah, I wanna look into that more. Maybe somebody in the audience, actually knows, and you can let us know, in the comments or something. But, yeah, I'll look into this more because this really, like, literally just popped up as I was,
I
looking through this.
I watched Cuckoo this past week. That was tremendous. A Hunter Schafer science fiction horror movie. Thought it was great. I gave it 5 stars. I know I'm bumping it up because I just love Hunter Schafer, who is a trans actress. But like I thought like most people that I've seen who watch this movie rated it pretty highly. I thought this was really great. It's about a daughter who has to move in with her father. You don't really know exactly what happened to the mother at the start of the movie, but she's moving in with her mom, or sorry, she's moving in with her dad. They are moving to a resort town in Germany where her dad is tasked with like building a new resort for I believe it's Dan Stevens. Is this we were talking about him I think before
Dan Stevens, yeah.
the pod. Dan Stevens is like the owner of this resort town area in Germany, and things start to get weird and strange in this little like resort
Sounds great.
town. It's great. It has like a little bit of Shining vibes to it in terms of like that, like where where they're going. But a lead being a trans woman, Hunter Schafer is really good in this. Dan Stevens is very fun in this. It's good. Highly worth checking out if it's playing in a theater near you. Go to see it instead of
I mean,
Borderlands.
I
Yeah.
typically for a horror movie, I think I've said this before on IMDb, I would look for, like, is it above a 5? Because a 5 is probably a watchable horror movie.
Yep.
Cuckoo right now at a 6,
Oh.
and, I think that's a pretty good sign, probably pretty decent movie.
Yeah.
And then also, you gotta account for, like, any kinda review
Yeah. Review
bombing that would
bombing.
happen,
Yeah. Yeah.
for that. So, yeah, interesting. Speaking of
Uh,
Dan Stevens,
yeah.
he was the replacement for Justin Roiland in Solar Opposites, which premiered its 5th season this week. I'm a couple I actually haven't seen the Dan Stevens seasons yet. So, I do not, I cannot comment on his performance, but, I think probably a bit of an upgrade there from, Justin Roiland.
A little bit.
But,
Every once in a while,
uh
there's one of these like animated shows that's like, this is its fifth season, and I've heard of it, but I'm like, okay,
well, they're
yeah,
able to
great,
crank them out.
true,
Solar Opposites basically, like, very much in the vein of Rick and Morty, essentially,
right,
which was not surprising given Justin Roiland. Um, Not like the best show, by itself, but it has this, like, side plot that
okay,
is so fun,
uh-huh,
where I will give you, like, the basics of it. Basically, the main plot is, like, these aliens who are, like, stranded on Earth, very typical, like, oh, they go throughout their thing, whatever. The children aliens kidnap humans, shrink them down to ant size, and have a giant ant wall on their bedroom wall that has tons of shrunken down kidnapped humans in it, and the ant wall plot line is amazing.
okay,
Of, like, the humans who are just living in this, like, little ant environment, like, and the politics and the rebellions and it's great. It's very fun.
okay,
Uh, you could probably just watch, the
just
episodes
percent.
with the ant stuff, and,
That's hilarious.
you'd probably have a good time if you really wanted to.
It's so funny. Yeah, there's a
Um,
couple of these. There's like The Great North, which is like a Bob's Burger, like the creator of Bob's Burger show that I think
mm,
is on its like fourth season now. Has like Ron Offerman starring. This Hit Monkeys, like a Marvel show that's in its second season, I think, just came out. That has like Ali Mackey and Olivia Munn and Jason Sudeikis and Kristen Milotti just joined the season. Like, there's so many of these like animated shows that are just like out there living their life,
I
being
mean, we've
renewed.
talked about it before, but, like, in a world where it's taking 2 years per season, these animated shows are able to, like, really put them out there, I think, a lot faster, and I think there's some value in that. Of course, speaking of, a show that took a little while to get back, as well, The Umbrella Academy,
Oh yeah,
season 4, I believe it's its final season,
it is its final
as
season. Yeah. Mhm.
yes, has either dropped is it drop all at once? It's Netflix, yeah,
Yeah,
so it's fully
they
dropped
didn't
now.
yeah, they didn't split the season. Yeah.
I've enjoyed The Umbrella Academy. It's one of those shows that, like, frustrates me with its, mm, like, CW-esque plotline,
Mm,
similar to The Boys at times.
mhm.
But similar to The Boys, I think The Boys is probably a good comparison to it. It's like, milder Boys, basically, with a bit more fantasy element to it, and I think it's very fun. I'm a couple seasons behind at the moment. I never checked out season 3. I do think that people have been not super pleased with seasons 3 and 4, from what I've heard so far, but, worth noting, I may eventually get to it, but, Umbrella Academy, I thought the 1st season was at least worth watching. I thought it was a good time.
I haven't watched any of this. This is a show that I people checked out. I think this is one where like people were checking it out, and then I felt like the feedback I heard is like, "Oh, it's not." This is very similar to the Gilded Age, where people were like, "I don't think it's that good," and then kind of like it just kept going, and the people who were watching were like, "No, no, it's actually pretty good. It's fine the whole time." Um, I've been told by multiple people this week, like literally multiple people, being like, "Oh yeah, Umbrella Academy, like last season dropped. It's a shortened last season. It's just 6 episodes for the last season." This is one I'll check out. Probably not until I've wrapped up my Emmys watch through. Like I'll probably prioritize that stuff and then get to it. It is filmed in Toronto, so that intrigues me to watch like places where I know and have been, because I believe it films around me. So that'd be kind of cool. But
I mean, it's
yeah,
honestly, like, in a world where there's a lot of TV, it's not something I would, like, deeply recommend.
mhm.
If you look at it and, like, visually, like, the style feels like something you'd be interested in and, like, you love superhero stuff, that's unconventional, you really like The Boys, like, maybe it's worth checking out, but if those things aren't, like, ringing a lot of bells for you, might not be worth your time at this point.
Okay,
Um,
interesting. In terms of what's coming, Taryn, I feel like I'm a little like I'm not committing other than industry, I'm not super committed right now. I'm trying everything. Like I didn't really go back to Sunny that I think I will try that. I don't know if I'm gonna go back to Lady in the Lake. Those About to Die, I'll probably keep watching, maybe at a slow bit. Like I'm not really like fully invested in anything. There is this new show called Bad Monkey that comes out
Mhm.
this Friday, I believe, on Apple TV Plus. This is a Vince Vaughn show, and I think most notably is another Bill Lawrence show on Apple TV, in addition to Ted Lasso and Shrinking. So they're just willing to throw money at Bill Lawrence to make television on Apple TV. This one is, I believe, it's based on a novel, 2013 novel called Bad Monkey. I think that there was also some rumor of this, like, was supposed to come out a little sooner, and it got pushed back a little bit. But I'm intrigued by it. They're going to do 2 episode drop this week, and then they will be weekly releases from there.
It
Um,
does have an actual monkey, to be clear.
yeah,
There is an actual monkey in the show.
it's a former police detective who has been reduced to conducting restaurant inspections in southern Florida, and a severed arm found by a tourist pulls Yancey into the world of greed and corruption that decimates the land environment in both Florida and the Bahamas. That's what they say it's about.
Yeah.
So,
And we were talking about Scrubs because Bill Lawrence has also recently mentioned that he is and this is one of those things, like, what was the context exactly? But he said he was open to doing more Scrubs at some point. I think that, if you're familiar with Scrubs,
oh, I don't
great
know.
show.
Yes, agreed.
But season 9 was essentially a spin-off that was turned into season 9. It was very much not what was intended, but I think that basically from what it sounded like, it was Bill Lawrence saying, "I would like to do that spinoff properly, where, like, it's a new generation of, people and, like, the old characters are still there, but, like, basically, like, do it, in the way that is not just, like, keeping a job for all of his crew while there's a strike going on,
Okay, let me tell you this.
or
Scrubs,
whatever going on."
Scrubs one of my favorite shows. It's one of the first shows I sort of like fell in love with as a show that I felt like was for me. It does this thing that I talk about all the time of, like, said it earlier, but it's very, very funny. I don't know how well it holds up. For me, the toughest part of going back is Dr. Cox calling JD a girl's name every episode for multiple times. So, like, there's some humor that I think always with humor when you go back, it's gonna be tough to see if it holds up. But I loved the show so much. I love Scrubs. Very fond of Scrubs. It is very funny, and then it can, like, be very emotional. There's, like, these very emotional episodes. Tremendous. It has one of the best finales ever. This was a show that for his last 2 seasons, like, wasn't really sure it was going to get renewed. It was on the bubble. They finally get to, like, end it in what I think is one of the best ending montage of a show of all time. And then it comes back in the fall, and they're like, actually, this is new Scrubs with a bunch of new characters. And I will say, I actually don't mind the Scrubs season 9 episodes. I actually think it has Dave Franco and these characters that I think are actually, they're not bad. They're actually pretty good. It's just that they called it Scrubs when it should have been Scrubs Med School or something. It should have been Med School,
Exactly.
but
That's what
it's
I
not.
think that was the intention, but because it was moved to a new network, they were basically like, "If you want to make this show, we have to call it Scrubs season 9." And their hands were kind of forced. I think that's basically what
So
happened. But
annoying.
yes, very much so. That is the story of Scrubs. The actual quote here, he said, when asked about the possibility of doing more Scrubs, he said, "Yeah, I'm really candid about it. We're definitely going to do it just because we've all been enjoying hanging out. Look, there's no drive because everyone's successful. And I think the show was on for like 72 years. But on the other hand, medical people over here right now are very heroic to me. It's been a tough road, blah, blah, blah. So I'm open to it. I'm open to it. And I don't want to do it as a movie, but I'm definitely open to doing a couple more years of that show. It would not only be fun to see where the characters I used to love are now, but also to see what a young doctor nowadays looks like as far as the kids coming in behind them. We've been talking about it a lot, and I think we'll figure it out in the next 6 months or so what we want to do. I'm just busy too, in a great way. So yes, he is obviously very busy.
I mean, if it lands at Apple and it's like, they're like these short and sweet, all right, I'll watch it. The problem is I'll watch it. That's the problem with the stuff that I'm like, okay, I'll watch more Scrubs, but I don't know that we need it. I do think it is interesting. I do think it is. I actually, in my, like, not my regular job, like, I work in for a nonprofit related to healthcare. And I do feel like post COVID has been a particularly tough time for healthcare. Like, it would be an interesting time to, like, visit this world. I think there's a lot of topical stuff they could get into, but I don't know if it needs to be under the banner of Scrubs, but perhaps we'll see.
One more thing upcoming. This is a bit of a blind recommendation because I have not had the time to watch this show yet, primarily because I believe it's primarily in Korean. But Pachinko,
Oh yeah.
season 2 is
Hmm.
coming in, let me see, uh,
Soon.
August 22nd, so very
Yeah,
soon. Um, I know that it's a very well-liked show. It is, I think, also an Apple TV show.
it is. Yeah.
Um, Again, I haven't had time to check it out, but, like, it's one that I want to check out. It's Let me tell you, not that often that I watch, Korean media and don't like it. So they make
Mhm.
good stuff over there.
I've heard it's
Um
well acted and it's beautiful, like it's shot beautifully. I believe it was covered on Post Show Recaps by Ariel and a friend of his, and I think he quite enjoyed it. So I would like to catch up before season 2. Yeah.
there you go. Alright, anything else, Grace, before we wrap up?
Nah, I think we got through pretty much everything we wanted to talk about. It feels a
Alright.
little slow. It feels like, again, as I said, I'm not like committed to anything, but there's a lot on. I don't think anything is like breaking through. So
Yes.
other than industry, which we're talking about weekly.
Bit of a catch-up episode, just kinda, like, doing some maintenance here,
Yeah.
as we
Oh,
move
I
forward.
I believe on the 19th. So this is next Monday. So right around the time our next episode comes out. Interview the Vampire season 1 is dropping on Netflix. And I think this has the potential to really blow up. I think the people who watch the show sort of fallen in love with it. It's a bit of a cult following. The show did a very interesting thing. I talked about a thing they did at the beginning of season 2. They've actually already dropped a teaser for sort of the content in season 3 based on the books that come next, which I was really intrigued because I don't think they've even like filmed. I think there's a thing they just did with one of the actors to be like, let's get people supremely hyped up for what and like let them know what we're gonna do next, essentially. I think this show has tremendous opportunity, much like we talked about a few weeks ago with Your Honor, that it can sort of
Mhm.
blow up, getting a Netflix bump. And I think it's like not only good enough, but it has like fandom appeal to it because there's a whole universe attached to it, and like the Reddit is very popular. That I think the show could really blow up. If you have not watched Interview, I would highly suggest you watch it. If you could watch it anyway, you could. It's an AMC show, but you should be able to watch season 1 on Netflix, at least in America, next Monday, August 19th. And I would highly suggest. I think Chappelle just did a watch through of season 1 and really liked it, maybe both seasons as well. So yeah, it's really, really good. I highly recommend it. So, and it's going to get a Netflix bump, I think.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
that is what we have for you then this week on the Tastemakers. Of course, we'll be back next week with more to talk about what's on, what's coming, and what to talk about, what to watch. In the meantime, stay tuned. We still have a little bit more House of Dragon coverage coming to you very soon, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. Also, of course, check out the industry coverage happening right now
Yes.
and everything else that goes on here on We Know Scripted TV. Anything else that we should mention, Grace?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's what we have for you then. Thank you all so much for joining us here today, and we will see all of you next time.